Welcome to the Windows Computer and Technology channel as we go through the different Windows versions and I give them a score that goes with my tech guy knowledge. And of course, we talked about Windows 3.1, we talked about Windows 95, and now comes Windows 98. And this is the operating system I would see the most when I started the tech duties back in 2000. Windows 98 was extremely popular, and it was definitely the operating system of choice for most people. And this was the system that I had used also quite a lot. I was using Windows 98 on a Pentium 166 computer that was running with I believe, a 2 gigabyte hard drive, which I'm pretty sure is what I had at the time of Windows 98. I still remember the 2 gigabyte hard drive costing me something like $350 at the time. It was huge, once again, for the time. The minimum requirements for Windows 98 was 66 megahertz 486DX computer at least, with 16 megabytes of memory, a VGA monitor, mouse and compatible pointing device, a keyboard, and a floppy or CD-ROM drive. Windows 98 did come on floppies again, but I think most people probably had a CD drive at the time. I remember I had a CD-ROM in my computer on Pentium 166. Had the CD-ROM version of Windows 98. And the minimum requirements for hard drive was roughly 250 megabytes of free space, at least. It actually had the ability to have a different size depending on all the accessories you would install. So you could actually run it technically with a minimum of about 120 megabytes of space. But if you added all the extra features, you could go all the way up to the 295 megabytes of disk space used. Windows 98 had 2 editions. It had the first edition, the original one, which came out on Monday, May 4th, 1998. And had a end-of-life date of July 9th, 2006. The second edition came out also with a year later, May 4th, but 1999. And of course, both added a few different things, but Windows 98 is kind of a Windows 95 upgrade, basically. It had the feel of Windows 95 still, but it had a few features, and one of them was particularly annoying, and often you would turn it off. They had decided, Microsoft decides in advance how something might be the future and just integrates all of it in there until they decide or they notice that it was not a good idea at the end. Windows 98 integrated Internet Explorer everywhere, including on the desktop. You could even have a web page on your desktop as a wallpaper, which was kind of odd and weird. It really was very unique, but it was focused on the internet. Windows 98 came of age to this is a internet-focused operating system. Now, we're in 1998. The internet is still not very popular, but Microsoft thinks it's going to be a big thing and already integrated a lot of stuff in there. It came with Internet Explorer 4, could be upgraded to Internet Explorer 5. Then the second edition actually had features that meant that the first edition was not able to upgrade to certain software, and you had to go to the second edition in order to be able to run newer software, including Internet Explorer 6. The operating system had for the first time, FAT32 support. Until then, it was, of course, FAT16, which was used for the hard drive. It ran on top of MS-DOS 7.1. Still needed DOS. It was still based on DOS. And it integrated a lot of features we kind of use still today in some ways. One of them was the Windows driver format, which is the Windows driver model, as WDM. We still hear that today, WDM. Well, that came from Windows 98. It's something that was the Windows driver model. It included added support for audio cards and, of course, for modems. And it also improved upon USB support. Plug and play was better, was getting even better with the second edition. So the support there was better. It had DirectX 6 for graphics and gaming, and it had a brand new media player, which was version 6.2, that replaced the old media player that was within the Windows operating system at the time. So it definitely was something that was different, and it definitely had some advantages and some new things that you did not see before within the system. Of course, it had, like I said, Internet Explorer, and it had the capability of going on the web. We had, of course, our first version of Outlook Express, which was a very popular email program back then. Of course, we upgraded the Windows 98 second edition, upgraded with the DirectX 9.0C, which was also something there. And, well, you couldn't boot from the system itself. You needed a boot disk of some sort in order to be able to actually install Windows 98. And actually, one of the things a lot of people did was boot when they wanted to install Windows 98. The fastest way to do so was boot in DOS, copy the content of your CD-ROM into a folder called Windows 98 on the hard drive, and click the setup from there to start installing Windows 98, which was a very popular way of doing it, and it was actually much faster than doing it directly from the CD-ROM and so on. So it was, of course, a popular operating system. It followed on Windows 95. It added, of course, much better internet and network capabilities, which was something that eventually was, dial-up internet was popular. And a lot of people used Windows 98 to do so because it made it actually easier to anyways do it than Windows 95. Crash, it did crash somewhat. More or less than Windows 95. I would say probably less than Windows 95. They had improved upon this, but it was still an operating system that you would get crashes from time to time. It was, part of using Windows. We were kind of used to a blue screen here and there, but it wasn't endemic and it wasn't too bad. It was actually acceptable, and you could use it for hours at a time before it would actually crash. I remember using it quite a lot. Windows 98 was definitely an operating system I enjoyed using. I remember that the copy I had was a borrowed copy from a friend, because back then, well, there was no activation checks. So you could simply borrow someone's, Windows 98 CD, install it on your PC, and it would just work. And that's what a lot of people actually did, because there is no activation check like there is today. Activation check actually started with Windows XP, and so that was a very different thing. But back then, because a lot of computers were not connected to the web, you couldn't really do an activation check, because you couldn't really, there was no really real way to really check if your machine is or not, a valid machine. So it was kind of an easier time for people that wanted to share Windows, let's call it like that. So Windows 98, fond memories, nice operating system from the time. And for a score, I'll give it the same score as Windows 95, which will be a 9 out of 10, because it was definitely nice to use. It was definitely a good OS for Windows. And even though it's still on top of DOS, if you had a machine, I had a Pentium 166, had 32 megabytes of RAM, it would actually run very well on that configuration I had back then. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and thank you for watching our videos. Hope you enjoyed a look back at the older Windows versions.